All right. Fetch. So, how does that work? And what are you doing over here? Get out of my face. Okay. It's inside API party here. What if I look? Can I see these on the network tab? Let's see. There's a network tab here. That it's just like not switching to at all. Network. Yeah, we're just not in the mood today. Network. There we go. XHR. That doesn't show up as XHR, does it? Let's refresh the page here. Let's go all. Here's some GitHub business. That's not it. Okay. I can't see it, unfortunately. Let's try in the console doing something. Well, nah. Let's just try. So I said I could call .then on the end of that. I could just chain .then. Because fetch returns a promise, I can call this and pass it a function that should run when it finishes. And I know it's going to give me back some JSON. So when that's the case, it'll pass in the response to your function here. And you should just be able to call response.json. And then it'll take whatever that is and pass that to the next then on the chain. From looking at the API documentation, I know that's going to be some user data. So I'm just going to say console.log user, see what we get, see if that much works. And we said we could chain catch on there, and if there's a problem at any point, if an exception is raised, it'll call that. Console log. Well, shucks. So we want to call fetch user data when. Probably as soon as the page loads, right? We'll already have the username in props. So let's add a constructor. We can just do it in the constructor. We don't even need to do a component will mount or whatever. Constructor, since we have props that are important, let's make sure we pass in the props to the constructor and pass that along to the superclass. And let's call this dot fetch user data. Hey, there we go. There's that user. How about we add it to state instead of console logging it? Now that we know we got it, we know that much worked. Sure. So let's say this dot state equals, and we'll just put user in there and we'll initialize it to a blank object. And then instead of console logging user, let's just do this dot set state user, our little object here, which is the same thing as saying user colon user. Let's look at our React Dev Tools. Let's look for GitHub user, state, user. Yeah, it's this big old user. It's got an avatar URL. Nifty. So how about instead of just rendering this enormous H1, let's inside this div show the avatar. Looks like it is this.state.user.avatar URL, like that. Let me go ahead and get the user out of state so I don't have to say this.state.user every time. I just want to say user. So I could use this trick, this destructuring trick from the other day. Const user equals this.state. It's very much like what we do when we do a named import. Very similar syntax. So the source should be user.avatar_URL. Alt. I don't know, I'm going to leave it empty. It's pretty much decorative. But make sure it's at least empty. Hey, look at that. You can trust him. What else? We've got user dot name is blank. That's kind of a bummer. It's all right. We got a login though. Whoa. So let's put an H2 under there. User.login. There we go. We can put followers and the number of people they're following. Let's make those H3s. Followers. User.followers. Following. User.following. Location may not be set, but we'll check it. Location. User.location. Cool. Let's see what other good stuff. Whoops. User. Events URL. Gists URL. HTML URL. There's a link to his profile. Yeah, so let's add that. Let's just make a link. Ahref equals user.html_URL. I'll put target equals underscore blank. You know what that does? Opens it in a new tab. And I'll say user.login apostrophe s outside the curly braces profile. Click on that. There we go. Cool. Hmm? Well, it didn't, did it? So we already have this component loaded, so it doesn't reload the whole component when you just update the URL. If the route matches the same one, but what it does do is send it new props. So let's look at GitHub user here. Match params username dstruce now. So it gets new props, but we only ran this when the page first loads, right? But we looked earlier at various lifecycle methods. One of there used to be one called did update or will update. I think will update, which is deprecated. So instead we have component will receive props. And what it'll do is it'll pass in what the props are about to change to as an argument to this. We'll call it next props. So now we can see what the props are about to become. And then we could call this dot fetch user data again. See what that does. Okay, there's destruce. Let's type dpalaz. Uh-oh. Didn't do it because it hasn't changed yet. So is there a did receive props? Come on. Got some errors. No such lifecycle method as did receive props, but there is did update. Now that is forbidden. Probably hit my API limit. That's always fun. Let's change it though. And do we at least get for, yeah, we get forbidden for the other one. So, hey. Now it's doing it over and over. So, yeah, without an API key, there's a limit to how many requests you can make in a certain amount of time. And it's doing it over and over now because of component did update. So let's get rid of that real quick. It's doing it way too often. I'll put component will receive props again. And let's check whether the location actually changed. So next props dot location. Location is one that we haven't looked at yet. If that's not equal to this dot props dot location, then I know that it really changed. So then I could say if, so I'm not going to do it over and over for the same one. If location changed, then call fetch user data. And it's going to use the old one, right? Because that's what's in state right now. So instead, fetch user data could actually take props as an argument. So instead of this.props.match, props.match. So we'll pass in the new props, the props that are about to change, and fetch it then. So now we're not going to fetch the same one over and over. Okay, cannot read property match of undefined. Right, because when I call it up here, it needs to be this dot props when I do it in the constructor, now that it expects props. Now I get my 403, I change it to destruce, I get my 403, but I don't get it over and over anymore. Unfortunately, we did it over and over for a little while, which made it look like a bot, which made it block me. So I'll have to remember to not even briefly do that in the afternoon. Suspicious behavior. But hey, totally would have worked, would have been sweet. So what do we do? Make fetch happen.